Hello and welcome to the Craft and Calling podcast. I am your host, Christine Marie. Y'all, we are diving into what are some of the most important needle movers for your business today, both in terms of attracting top clients, but also attracting top talent. And there are a couple different aspects that we'll be talking about today that is so important for us to do that. But before we dive into the growth of your business, attracting clients, attracting talent, I want to introduce you to our guest. I'm so incredibly privileged, Adam, to have you here, CEO of My Social Practice. Adam, can you introduce yourself?
My name's Adrienne.
Adrienne.
You've been calling me Adrienne for a week. Where did Adam come from?
I don't know.
It's okay. It's okay.
That's so funny. This is why it's funny to do it live.
This is why it's good to do it live.
No.
It's totally fine. Audience,
no, it's funny because
she's been calling me Adrienne the entire time and then just dropped Adam at the beginning of this episode. Authenticity.
That's why we go live.
That's okay. This is gonna be fun. You should listen in.
I just love it, man. And
are you embarrassed?
I'm like, where did that? I'm wondering where that came from in the recesses of my mind. But we're talking. One of the things we're talking today, which is just so the irony of this, we're talking about how to grow your business, and one of the best ways to attract the top clients and top talent is through authenticity. So
there you go.
Adrienne Lefler, ladies and gentlemen. Adrienne, will you introduce yourself?
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I love it. Yeah, I'm the CEO of a company called My Social Practice. So my claim here, and hopefully to help kind of guide the conversation, is or my experience in business. And I have failed in business. Okay. I have a previous company, I was bankrupt. That was before I started My Social Practice with my good buddy. Okay. The thing that I've learned is that the most valuable attribute is authentic relationships, trustworthy relationships. So my feeling about this is that I used to think, and I think a lot of business owners think that the value of their business is related to is correlated when you're looking at valuing your business at the bank account, how much money you're generating. And I have found that that's not actually true in the long run, that the value of your business is the strength of your healthy, trustworthy relationships. That in the long run will bring more value to your life, right? But it also aligns you with core values, and those things bring the money down the road. So that's my claim. That's my experience.
Good. And I'm excited to dive into this because you've not only built obviously your own business, but you've been working and kind of had your hands in many, many businesses. And y'all, actually the businesses that you've been supporting, a lot of them are owned by an individual, right? They're not necessarily private equity. And so this is primarily who we're talking to tonight. Owners and operators of trades businesses. And so I'm excited for us to talk more about that because to your point, and even what you said, Adrienne, about bringing value, not just to the business, but bringing value to your life. Are we actually thinking about looking at our life in a holistic perspective? And with the Craft and Calling, we're talking about legacy here. And it's not just the legacy that you're leaving behind on the business, but legacy you're leaving behind in terms of your family as well. So I like looking at it through the lens of legacy because what we're doing today, the decisions we're making right here, right now, are all contributing to the legacy we leave behind tomorrow. So to that point, I'd love to lean in a little bit more on the authenticity side because not many people are talking about this. They're talking a lot about AI and automation. And actually, we're going to talk about that later because it is so important. It is so timely and relevant. But the authenticity piece I want to dive into first because a lot of folks are actually starting to hide behind automation, and there's a lot of AI generated content out there. How are you looking at AI through an authentic lens?
Well, it is like threading a needle, to
Mm,
be honest. And there's a lot of confusion about where AI plays in the relationship with human beings. Okay. I don't think it's landed yet. I think we're figuring out how AI will how we as human beings will interact with AI and the amount of influence it'll have on our life. I think that that is we're right in the middle of figuring that out. So when we start talking about authenticity, how do we retain our authentic self or authenticity in our business when we have this onslaught of software that replaces activities that a human being typically does? We're still trying to figure out where those lines are going to be drawn. Um, Let me give you an example. I'm going to narrow in on one example to try and answer this question. Okay. So let's talk about copywriting as a very specific example. And then how these lines, how I feel, my claim is that AI actually helps us be more authentic, but you have to use it appropriately. Okay. I'll give you an example. So we do a ton of copywriting. Okay. Because copywriting is a really big part of search engine optimization. And copywriting really is how you tell your story. Right. So for years, we've had a copywriting team, right? Great copywriters that just write for and in the mouth and in the persona of our client. We work with mostly healthcare professionals, dentists primarily. Okay, dentists don't have time to write. Most of them don't, right? So they would hire us to do all the writing for them. So what we've seen over the years is as we start writing copy, you end up writing the same thing over and over again. If you're working with 2,000 dental practices and you need to rewrite their websites, I mean, how many times can you rewrite a page about dental implants and make it sound authentic when it's the 1,500th time you've done it, right? The stuff just starts kind of regurgitating itself. So, so we decided that we were going to start leveraging AI because we thought that, hey, this is a repetitive task and we can streamline processes. Rather than have a human rewrite the same stuff over and over again, why don't we just have AI write the stuff over and over again, right? That was kind of the initial thought. But when we started actually putting the processes together on writing, what we found is the AI was actually much better than a human at coming up with creative ideas, creative angles, and analogies and metaphors that are outside of the typical mind space of our copywriters. And we started looking at different ways that we could write copy where AI helped influence some of the creativity. And what we found, and there's a lot of parts to this that we added to this whole copywriting project. But what we found is that at the end of this, we actually got better copy that sounded more human, freakily enough, right? Even though we were
Interesting.
leveraging AI in multiple places in the process. So
Yeah.
So unless we were to dig in and like say exactly how we did that, which we don't want to spend the time doing that today. What I will say though is that we actually have more. We have the copy that you read now, where AI is helping in the process
Mm,
to read more authentic about the practice that we're writing for. So
right.
really, it's a very fine line, you know.
Mm, mhm.
I mean, in the industry or the internet is being inundated with billions of pages of shit GPT copy
Yeah.
that takes no thought. People just go, write me this, they copy and paste it. That's happening
Right.
like crazy, right? That's
Right.
not what I'm talking about. Okay. I'm talking about focusing on authenticity, creating a practice story or a practice, a business story, and then influencing the copywriting project with AI and a great editor, right?
Mhm, mhm.
So that's just one short example, like how do you find this line where you can
Right.
stay authentic but still leverage AI? And there's definitely a way to do it, for sure.
Right.
A lot of different
Yeah,
ways.
and I'm excited to talk deeper on the what AI tools you guys are using, what automation practices you're using,
Yeah,
because when we were talking the other day in preparation for this conversation, I'm excited because what you guys are doing, it saves time, and it's not only about saving time to shortcut tasks. That's not the goal. The goal is to actually be able to spend and kind of reorient that time to the person to person relationship aspect, like eliminate the
sure.
swivel chair tasks and spend more time with your customers. So that's
Well,
really the
that
goal.
that's the goal. If you keep your focus on
Right.
humans, let humans do what they do best, which is build relationships and automate the rest of it, you're good.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit deeper about authenticity in terms of winning jobs. So
Okay.
before we move forward, how do you define authenticity? What does that mean to you?
Um, I think, well, I can only answer it by the first thought that comes up. I don't know if you want me to say something, but I'm just going to tell you what I think and feel when you say that. Okay.
Yeah, please.
The way that I like to present myself in in a goal of being authentic is honesty is the first word that comes up. Okay. And a level of transparency into my own personal thoughts and feelings and belief systems. And it doesn't have to be everything. I think you can be way too authentic sometimes and reveal yourself in relationships where it's inappropriate or you could put yourself at risk emotionally. Okay. But there is a line, there's a place where you have to give enough of who you are and your own feelings and thoughts into a relationship in order to achieve authenticity. And that requires honesty, and it also requires, I think, and for me, the objective is always building the relationship, not trying to get something out of somebody. Okay. So for you, example, right? Our relationship, we've talked a few times now, and I've been open. I've told you things about myself that were probably more than what you would expect from a typical guest, but it was enough to give you some information to help us meet on a playing field where we can dig a little bit deeper than a surface level conversation. But doing that, I think you trust me to some degree. I think there's a level of trust being built, and I kind
Right.
of know who you are, and there's a level of trust being built. So all of a sudden, when that is there, all of a sudden the conversation comes to, well, what are some other things that you and I could do together?
Right.
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 And I'm open. I'm like, well, let me help you. Let me try this. Let me try
Mhm.
that. And you're doing the same thing. So whether or not that evolves into anything and we end up doing something other in business or whatever, doesn't matter. What matters is that you open that conversation up to allow those conversations to happen. Otherwise, it's always a transactional relationship, right? And I don't want things to be transactional. Does that answer your question?
It does. And it's, what's so interesting. I hate sales. Like I've always had this aversion to sales because of this authenticity
Issue.
concept that
Yeah,
you
yeah, exactly.
and so I know that, in order for me to grow my business, I need to be talking about it, telling people about it. And so I reached out to a couple of folks, and I actually left a voice memo, and I just said, hey, I wanted to introduce myself and invite you for lunch. This is why I'm here. This is why I wanted to invite you. This is what attracted me to you. And let me know if you're up for it. And people, I met with them yesterday for lunch, and they called out each one of those things. I had commented on their LinkedIn posts that they made and then friended them. And it wasn't even some intentional whole big strategy. It was very organic. And I think that that's an aspect to where you were saying about like leading with honesty. It's not manipulation. I don't have this playbook that I'm running to try to manipulate the relationship, but it's really organic and really, and I think that is even in almost a comparison to authenticity is organic. Like, is it natural? Is it flowing? Is there, to your point, is there values alignment? You talked about values earlier. That's so much of what we build our business on. And so I'm grateful for that example because it is true, man. When it flows naturally, that's, I think, when you can tell if somebody's actually able to kind of exist in their authenticity, because if they're forcing it, if it feels manipulative, so often it's because it is. So I love that aspect of it's not going to be transactional. And if you're looking at and searching for transaction, it will never be able to be authentic.
The problem with that, and I agree with you, but the problem is you've got to close the deal at some point.
Yeah. So talk to me about that.
You have
Yeah.
to take money from somebody, and that it becomes transactional at that point. So everybody has to have I think that there's a little bit of, I hate to say it this way, but there's probably a little bit of kind of manipulation at some level when you're trying to close business. Okay. You have to build a relationship of trust. You have to deliver after you got to deliver on what you committed to. You can't just sell bullshit, right? Or you're going to get your ass handed to you. But you got to take the money at some point. And so you have to close the deal. And at that point, you have to become not necessarily lovey-dovey and fluffy. You have to become firm and show that you're in command of that transactional process. You have to demand that money has to flow in order for the relationship to move forward. So you have to set the correct expectations and so forth. So there's like I know a lot. I've hired a lot of salespeople. I've been a salesperson, and there are just millions of people on this planet who can lean into this whole authenticity, love, and compassion and transparency idea, but they can't close the deal.
Yeah.
Right? So you
Yeah.
have to switch at some point in that relationship and become an authority. So
Mm,
once you've built trust and you're confident in what you're providing, okay? You can't be selling snake oil, right? You
yeah.
have to say, I am going to do this for you and I'm going to deliver. And this feeling and this vibe of trustworthiness that we've built, I'm going to maintain that. But you've got
Mm,
to pay me to spend my time to do what you need. So
mm,
you just have to be able to get firm at some point, and a lot of people can't make the switch to getting
yes.
firm and then asking for the transaction. So
Mm.
it's
That's
it's
such an
it's tough.
interesting perspective. I'm so grateful that you said that because I think one, I've all, well, I'm just going to be super personal here for a second. Um, I think that that's why I haven't liked salespeople, because it feels like it's a game the whole time. And somebody even posted here in the chat. They said authenticity is just another way of saying inauthentic. Like if you have to say you're authentic, you're not. And so I think that there's kind of a bad rap with even that concept of authenticity. So I'm curious, when we're talking about sales
Yeah.
and even attracting the top talent and being genuine, I actually wonder, maybe it is having the authority that whole time, so that we don't ever have to switch. But I mean, now here's the thing that I think that saved me was that I said, I want to get together, I want to talk business. Like I said what I wanted right up front. And I
Yeah.
think that that was helpful because then I could come in and we talked about, tell me about your kids and tell me about why you're here. But we all knew why we were
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that that's actually where I haven't done well in the past is I just haven't even wanted to talk business because I don't want them to feel like I'm taking anything from that, all of that. So I've had to work through that mindset. And so this is really, really important in terms of, we were talking about having some, we've got authenticity, we've got automation that we're going to be bringing in. And I actually really love the addition of authority there, because if you're trying to be authentic and you're only trying to leverage like the right hemisphere of the brain, which is the emotional side and the nurturing, the compassionate, lovey-dovey side, to use your words, man, that's actually only part of us. The other part is the intellectual based, case driven authority language. And so really perhaps it's like both of those being in action together is really when we see the authentic person, when both sides of us are being presented. And
So
then Yeah, go ahead.
No, I totally, I thought you were done. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, please.
So there's the way you're describing this, I think that there's um, we need to delineate between two different types of like things. So I'm the CEO, you're the CEO of your company. When we talk to each other, I'm not selling you anything, you're not selling me anything. It's a business development relationship. Okay. Um, at least I don't know if you're selling. If you're selling me something I didn't know, so good on you. Okay. I'm not selling you anything, but who knows, right? So it's a business development relationship.
Yeah.
And at that level, that is different than a sales type of process. Okay. In this type of a relationship, you can you can be authoritative, you can be authentic, authoritative, and you can look for collaborative opportunities. It's a much easier type of process because you're not asking for a sale at some point. But when you have a company, okay, and you're selling a product. So in my company, I'm kind of like the business development guy, right? I go out, I talk to this company and this doctor and that doctor, and I'm building relationships of trust, okay? But when I get a dentist who's interested in our product, I do not make the sale. I hand that off to my sales team, okay? The practice comes to me because they saw me speak and they're like, this guy's genuine. He's trustworthy. He knows what the hell he's talking about. I'd like to work with this company. So I have a quick conversation with that doctor. Yes, this is what you need. Great. We can help you with that. Let me have you talk to my sales team. Now, the sales guy doesn't give a shit about my business development processes unless it generates more leads for the sales guy because he or she's feeding their family and they're based commission sales, right? So
Mhm.
they're like little tigers. They should be tigers. They need to get the money. So
Right.
so what happens is you have a different type of relationship building when it's business development versus sales.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So we have to be clarify that because I don't like when I was on the sales. I did sales for 25 years, and I did all
Mhm.
the sales for my social practice for like the first my business partner and I did it for like the first 7 or 8 years, and then we had enough money to hire a sales team, right?
Right.
And in my sales calls, I was far more authoritative. I
Hmm.
built the trust through authority rather than through transparency into all my own personal human experience, right?
Right.
So when I would have conversations, I wasn't sharing with that client, that I'm religious or spiritual or these are my values. I came across and
Mm.
I said, "What are your values? Got it. We can do that." Okay.
Mm.
So I came across authoritative in order to establish trust, right?
Right.
It's a
Right.
different angle.
I
It's how
love
you
that.
handle
Yeah.
it, right? And I
Yeah.
don't think that the visionary, the person in your position or my position in our companies should be in charge of sales because it's
Right.
an awkward transition to switch
Right.
to the sales process, right?
Right.
So anyway,
Right.
I want to clarify that.
I love that, and it's such a good perspective in terms of authenticity can take on so many different shapes and forms. I think the question is only we really know if we're being authentic and if we're coming forward with that level of honesty, you
Right.
know? And people are going to have different expectations based on what your, here's another thing too, not only just based on what your job title is, but people have different expectations in the customer journey. So when they first come to call to your website, that's step one, or filling out a form or seeing an ad, and then they call you on the phone, they talk to the call center, that's going to be very different than talking to the salesman who's there
Yeah,
giving an estimate. So
absolutely.
I love that in terms of like the relationship changes and evolves based on your title, but then also where the audience is in the journey, and authenticity takes on different personas kind of along the way. So I love this. This is so good. So
The
the definition, I
the
think, yeah,
Sorry, I cut you off again.
we're just
Can we
playing
just give
tennis.
a pass on cutting people
We're just
off?
playing tennis. We're
Alright.
passing.
So what I find is that the owner of your company needs to set the standards and the values and maintain the authentic, trustworthy persona that you want your company to stand for. That's the job of the owner of the company. And then that person, or a high level exec, needs to make sure that everybody else is following that as close as possible, down to your sales team. So that when the salesperson gets on the call, they know that this is what we stand for and this is what we're going to deliver. And you're always having to go to under your salespeople. Not always. If you get a really good salesperson, they'll nail it every time. But sometimes you get these AWOL sales guys or gals who start saying shit they shouldn't be saying, right? To try and get the deal. And you have to like nip them in the butt, right? Or bud, or whatever that saying is, nip them in the bud. I don't know what that means. To make sure that they stick to the values that are set at the top.
So good. So really the ability to operate authentically as an individual, but then you add in the layer of, and you work for the company.
Yeah.
So be the representative. I love it. There's so many layers here. Adrienne, I really, as we transition kind of from this element of just focusing on authenticity, I just wanted to say I so appreciate what you've shared, because I've had this conversation with many different folks over the past couple of years, and most people don't go as nuanced as you did. So I just wanted to say I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
It makes for an interesting conversation. All right, so what you all are doing in terms of storytelling is actually such a key to kind of get to that next part of, one, you're using storytelling to reflect the authenticity of the business, but then also establish authority. And also it leads to, so I guess either way, so it's reflecting the authenticity, it's reflecting the authority, but then the result is attraction. You're attracting new business and you're attracting top talent. So can you talk about that specifically, how you all are kind of using storytelling as a bridge?
So so when you talk about storytelling, and I've looked at, you sent me some of your previous podcasts, so I think I know what you mean by that. So let me clarify it for the audience. So, and tell me if I'm on point here, okay? Storytelling is the way to define who you are and what you stand for, okay? We learn through stories. That's how we learn. That's why we have media. That's why we have books. That's why we have films and so forth. We learn in life through watching another individual or reading about another individual going through an experience that we then relate to our own personal life, okay? And that teaches us lessons, okay? So in business, and you mentioned like a few different aspects of storytelling. So let me break it down. In business, you need to have a story about your business. Who are you through a story? And that becomes an establishment of your mission and your vision, right? So if you don't have a story about who you are that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, like a movie or or whatever, then it's very difficult to identify what your message architecture is going to be. Like, what do you say in an ad? How do you present yourself to the world if you don't have some kind of a story? Now, a lot of businesses don't have a story, and they haven't figured out how to take that story and transition it into a marketing message, right? And what happens is the marketing content from a business who doesn't have a story becomes very bland.
Right. Absolutely.
It doesn't have any, it doesn't present any authenticity. And it also doesn't provide for benefit statements and unique selling position or proposition. It just leaves you kind of like gray, competing with all the other companies that are kind of gray. And then you just fight on price. You have to have something that illustrates who you are in order to create the value propositions where somebody would pay the price for your product. So that's at the company level, okay? Now, you also mentioned storytelling with our clients. Now, we work mostly with dentists, okay? And Anybody that wants to do this, go look at 100 dental websites and you're going to see the same shit over and over and over again. Rarely are you going to run into a practice that has a story, right? And so when we bring on a client, we have to figure out what their story is. They usually don't have a story. If they had one, they probably wouldn't need our help in the first place, right? In terms of finding new dental patients. So we have to help them develop a story about who they are that then informs all the marketing. Okay? Because if you don't have a story, then you just get gray. And it's a fight to the bottom in terms of like discounts and trying to earn business through discounts. So that part of what we do as a marketing company is we have to come in and start at that place. What is your story? And if they don't have one, we have to coach them through developing the story.
Right.
Okay. So what's the next question from there? Where do you want me to go?
Yeah. Well, I'd love to know, when you're coaching them through story. So we learn through story. And, Harvard found that 95% of purchase decisions take place in our subconscious, which is where our emotions live. So emotions are a result of story. And back to this whole conversation of like employing both the EQ and the IQ, we need to do that for the purpose of connection. And the end, connection with ourselves first, to then lead from that authentic place so that we can touch on the emotion and have real connection, have real relationship with our teams, with customers, like all around. And it starts at the top with leadership. So when you're working with these leaders to help them understand and bring story, it's like bringing color into the business, bringing color onto the website, bringing color onto the social media. How do you really help them think about who they are and what their why is to bring that splash of color?
Yeah, you just mentioned the Harvard report. I'll just echo that really quick. It's in psychology, it's well established that we make decisions based on emotions, and then we use logic to support that decision. So we make an emotional decision, and then after we've made the decision to buy a product, we then logically justify that behavior. That's how the brain works. Okay, that's how our heart works. That's just what we do. Okay, and so the emotion in the decision-making process for a consumer will be most easily developed through storytelling. Okay. So that's why the story is so important, is if you don't have something that really illustrates who you are as an organization and what you're going to do for your client, they can't get emotional about it to make the decision to move forward. And then, you've earned a client. So what do we do? Well, I'll use this podcast as an example. Okay. If I were your client and you were going to do branding for us, like brand marketing, okay, the best way for you to get the information that you need to tell my story is to take this transcript of this call and leverage that into creating content. We could have a conversation here. We could take the next hour and you could ask me a set of questions about what the story is for my company and help me develop that. And then once you have that, you've got everything you need to then turn around and build the content that tells the story. Make sense? So the easiest way to do this is to have a freaking phone call or a podcast with your client. In order to create the content for them. I'm speaking specifically about developing marketing content for one of your clients or one of our clients. So what we do is when a client comes to us, okay, and they say, hey, I need a new website and I want to start ranking in the recommendations for ChatGPT and Google Gemini. That's my goal. I want to be the recommended dental practice in my community.
Right.
What we would do is we would get on a call with them and we would start asking questions like, why did you decide to become a dentist? Where are you from? What's your family like? What's your team like? How do you want patients to feel when they come to your practice?
Right.
Um, you have a Hippocratic oath to do no harm. What does that mean to you? How do you want to be remembered? Okay. These are questions that are not like questions like, what type of dental implant metal do you use? You know what I mean? That's not the story. The story is who are these people, right? Who is this doctor? Who are the team members? What am I going to feel like as a patient when I come to this practice? Will I feel anxious? Will I feel, like I can trust these people, right? So you have to think through what are those questions that lead to developing a story and the experience of a patient coming into the practice. Once you have that, now when you got to go build a website, or you got to write an about us page on their website, it's not just this doctor went to Tufts University and graduated on blah 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 and has this degrees and whatnot and really likes dogs. You know what I mean? So you can start crafting something. Now, once you have that, okay, once you have that transcript, right? You have the words from your client. Now you can leverage AI. This is where AI can be helpful because AI, if you prompt correctly, can analyze that transcript based on your prompting to help you develop a story, okay? And help you come up with creative marketing campaigns and so on and so forth. But what you don't want to do, going back to our original question about where AI falls in, is you don't want to just go to ChatGPT and say, write me a page about dental implants for this doctor in this city and state. Because it's
Right.
just fodder. It means nothing.
Mm.
It doesn't have there's nothing in it. There's no feeling in it, right?
Mm.
There is no story. There's nothing there. So you have to get the content. You have to get the content. You have to get you have to do the recording. You got to record the call, whatever it is. But as soon as you've got that, as long
Mhm.
as the person that's managing that conversation knows how to interview well and can really dig deep on who
Yes.
that person is, you're good.
Right. And the
So
goal
that's
is,
what you're doing.
yeah, and I just to reiterate this, Adrienne, I love this process of question asking and really drawing it forth from people because it's going to always it's just going to be you said fodder. It's just going to, yeah, it's adding to the noise. There's so much noise. There's so much noise and there's so much busy content out there. And so how are we actually adding value? How are we serving? And I think that at the end of the day, it's like, am I actually seeking to serve? And when we think about the content for the website too, is my audience the hero? We're actually in this story archetype for our customers. They're the hero, actually. We're coming in and saying, hey, I'm going to be the guide. Like, I'm going to help you, uh, uh, keep your family safe by fixing the foundation of your home so it can stand tall and strong for a while. This is your greatest asset. Or in your particular example of dentistry, really actually helping preserve. My dad actually, he went in and he got some new implants and he had never done that before, but man, his confidence just totally went through the roof. And it was so cool. Like, now my dad smiles with his teeth and he just
Yeah.
has this beautiful smile now. And it's cool to see, like, literally the transformation of my own dad and the way he smiles and now shines in pictures. Whereas before he just never liked his teeth. It's in your genes. Like, he and my mom eat the same thing, and my mom has no problems, and my dad did. It's just, you can't help it. And it was so fun seeing my dad kind of come to life in photos. And so that's the emotional aspect of the storytelling component of your services really can transform people's experience in so many ways. And so thinking in the lens of storytelling, of transformation of services and transformation of
Right.
this is who we are. And then thus it attracts people because people feel the emotional pull to, man, I actually want that. I want to be helped in a similar way. And again, it's all about service. So I love your process. I so respect that.
Well, you're leaning into a concept that is pretty common in. It's hard to do, but it is like the shift in marketing that really makes the difference, which is shifting your messaging from talking about you to talking about your client or your customer, your patient. So,
Mm,
as you're telling me this experience with your dad, I'm thinking about lots of our clients who,
mm,
I mean, one of the things that they do after we're working with them and they're moving forward, one of the things they do is they do patient reveals. So when a patient comes in and they need an all on four, like
nice.
they don't have any teeth. They got three teeth and they need a whole
Yeah.
whole mouth reconstruction. That patient doesn't see their teeth until the end of the procedure, right?
Wow. I just got chills. Oh, I can only imagine how they must
So
react.
if you pull your damn phone out and film the
Right.
that moment when they see their smile, these people lose it.
Oh,
Like, they cry, their life has been changed, right? So
wow.
if your initial story is we exist to make you smile, or we exist as a dental practice to bring joy to your life. Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm just riffing for a second, right? That's like the one statement. Then you have to create content that supports that story, right? And so patient reveals are like one of the best things that you can do, because when somebody
Mhm.
watches that, they get emotional. They see this patient crying and their life has been changed, and they're like, that's what they feel it, and they're like, that's what I want. And they call the office, and they know that they believe they're going to have a similar experience. So it just frames up everything really well when you let your patient or your consumer or your client tell your story, as long as it's aligned with the story of your business, right? That's
So good.
it's the hard thing to do, but it's
Yeah.
actually easier than you think. Most businesses, especially in healthcare, think that they just have to tell people what they do, and no one gives a
Mm,
shit about what you do. Matter of fact, they probably wouldn't even understand it anyway if you explained it to them. What they wanna know is how they're gonna feel if they use your services.
right.
That's the focus.
Yeah. And how they're gonna feel, how their life's gonna be totally transformed. I love that. I'd love for us to talk about, your hiring process in terms of, we're talking about attracting, using stories to attract customers, to attract our team, to really strengthen our business and to really serve. And so my question for you is, in the attracting of your team, you've actually started hiring for kind of a very different role than you ever were before. You were initially, and I'm going to summarize here and you tell me if I'm off base, effectively how it was and how most traditional companies have operated is, let's get the expert in social media, let's get the expert in digital marketing, let's get the expert in website design, let's get the expert in sales. You guys are hiring very differently now, and I'd love to hear kind of your approach given this AI era. Well, you're attracting them by way of authenticity, and then you're also hiring them for the purpose of automation and AI.
Yeah. So if anybody has had their eyes open over the last couple of years, there have been massive layoffs in the white collar worker world. Okay. And so what's happening right now is that many tasks that used to require a human can be automated. Okay. So, like, for example, coding, like actually writing computer code. It can be done better by an AI than a human being. So coding
Right.
people have been laid off like left and right.
Mm,
Hundreds of workers at a lot of the big software and SaaS companies are being laid off because these companies are realizing that they can streamline and they can automate a lot of these tasks with software and through AI capabilities. Okay. So we are a small company. We have 30 employees. So we're tiny compared to some of those examples, big examples. But what we're doing now, and we're right in the middle of this transition, okay, is that so, and we have many teams. We have several teams in our company. Just to give you some context, so we have a social media team, we have a SEO team, we have a reputation management team, we have a copywriting team, website development team, a paid ads team. Okay, we have all these different
mhm.
teams. And what we've done in the past is, like you said, we've hired people who understood that particular team skill set. They had the skill set to understand what's happening on that team, social media strategist, copywriter, so on and so forth. And we haven't fired anybody. Okay. We haven't gotten rid of anybody, but we have gone back and we're right in the middle of this. Like just recently, we went back to one of our employees and we said, hey, look, you've been doing this particular job for the last 8 years. Okay. And here's the job now. And we'd like to know if you'd like to be hired for it. Okay. The job now is not, you're just not doing SEO strategy. You're a prompt engineer that understands SEO strategy, or you're a prompt engineer that understands copywriting, or you're a prompt engineer that understands social media. If you're a prompt engineer that understands social media. So the reason that we put prompting as a new description in our hiring process is prompting is the key to
Right.
figuring out how to streamline tasks using AI. So,
Mm,
and in prompting, it doesn't mean just going to ChatGPT and typing in a prompt. Prompt engineering might be leveraging multiple pieces of software and then AI software and prompting them appropriately to communicate together agentically. Okay.
right.
So if we don't have an employee that knows how to prompt, then we can't take advantage of the opportunity to streamline and also improve the product.
Mm,
Okay.
yeah.
So that's our new task. And in this transition into an AI influenced world, we have to have people that know how to interact with an AI and are not afraid of it. Okay. So what's happening generally in business right now is the employees that do a task, like let's take not copywriting, but coding, for example. Okay. Like if I had a team of coders, right, I would say, hey guys, we don't need 10 coders anymore. 5 of you are leaving, but of the 5 that are staying, they will be the people who know how to leverage AI to help them in their coding, right?
Mhm.
So they have to be able to say, I have to change the way in which I do my tasks in order to improve the profitability of the company and streamline my own processes. And that is freaking terrifying to people
Yeah.
because they think that AI is taking their job. AI is not
Mhm.
actually taking jobs. It's people who know how to leverage AI are being able to do the jobs of 5 other people. That's what's happening. So if you're an employee and you're at threat of losing your job because of AI, you need to think about learning how to leverage AI because that will be the
Mm,
thing that keeps you employed or actually puts you in a position to start your own freaking company. Like,
mhm.
you see what I'm saying? So we are hiring for prompt engineers that know marketing. That's the difference.
So good. So good. I think most businesses listening to this, and honestly, even just folks listening to this, y'all, whether you have a business and you're considering who to hire, or you are someone who's wondering what to do on the weekends, I was just leaving a voice memo to a partner and told her, let's, I'm going to be learning vibe coding myself, even though I am actually going to be looking to hire that out.
Yeah.
I think it's invaluable for every single one of us, no matter the level of where we are in the business, but also when we're thinking about, for those of you who are in a hiring position, that's one of the most invaluable positions. So I'm so grateful that you're kind of leading in this way, Adrienne, and able to talk about it, because I think that we need to have a complete reframe of, Nicole in the chat said, be an AI technician,
Yeah.
really know this stuff.
Yeah.
So Adrienne, any parting words for our owners, operators in the trades?
So in the trades, we've worked with a few hundred trade companies over the years. We've been in business for about 16 years. And so we do have people come to us, business owners, looking for services, even though we focus on dentistry. I would say that I would say, well, here's a really practical way to approach AI. So I'm going to answer the question about AI and the influence of AI on a company. It should not be a top-down initiative, okay? And there's been actually quite a few studies over the last couple of years on this by big companies, meaning you shouldn't at the top of the company force your people to use AI. That's extremely threatening, and it may not be their responsibility, or it would be their responsibility if you gave them the directive, but they may not have the capability of understanding the long-term vision. So what you want to do is you want to give your workers and you want to encourage them and invest in giving them access to the tools that are AI, and then have them use them and say, I can do my job better with this tool, and it costs $50 a month, and invest in it. Right? Give them the tool with a directive that they will report back on ways in which they can streamline your company and streamline their tasks, and obviously become more profitable. So if it's a bottom up process rather than a top down process, you're going to have far more success. And I don't necessarily know exactly in the trades what those softwares might be or whatever, but I would say a good place to start is get pro accounts on ChatGPT or Claude for your employees, and let them get used to using it, and then come back and say, I think I could probably do this.
So
right?
good.
And then encourage them. And that's a way that you can start moving into transitioning into a company that is AI influenced in an appropriate way.
I really, really love the advice on the bottom up, and it gives them autonomy while learning something new. Yeah, it removes the fear, and now it's curiosity-based research and learning. So, Adrienne, thank you so much for coming on here. I'm grateful for you, and excited for future conversations. So thank you.
You're very welcome. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Y'all, thank you so much for joining us. I will see you next time as we dive deeper into all things business, trades, and leading well for the purpose of legacy leaving. Thanks.